Hey y'all, today we're talking about one-step equations. Step 1, you want to locate the variable. Step 2, determine the operation tied to the variable. Step 3, use inverse operations on both sides of the equal sign to solve. That's key right there, on both sides of the equal sign. That means whatever you do on one side, you must do on the other. And finally, step 4, check your solution. So let's get started with some examples. So right here, number 1, I have -3 equals m minus 14. So the first thing I like to do every single time is draw a line through my equal sign. That helps me remember that whatever I do on one side, I must do on the other. Now I'm going to locate my variable, and my variable is that m right there. So I want to get it by itself. And see how it's connected to that minus 14? It's m minus 14. Well, how do I undo minus 14? If you said add 14, you're correct. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add 14. And remember, whatever I do on one side, I must do on the other. So I'm going to come over here and add 14 as well. Okay, so let's talk about the side with the m. So -14 plus 14. Well, that's just 0, so that cancels out. And I'm left with m, and m is by itself. That's what I want. So now let's talk about the left-hand side. -3 plus 14. Those are just two integers that have different signs, so I'm really going to subtract. 14 minus 3 is 11. And I keep the sign of my bigger number so I know it's positive. So 11 equals m is my answer. Now I want to ask you, would it be the same thing if I wrote m equals 11? Yeah, it would be the exact same thing. It doesn't matter how you write your answer. Okay, but now we know we need to check our solution, right? So the way we check our solution is we plug in our solution into the original equation and simplify. So we have -3 equals 11 minus 14. So what exactly is 11 minus 14? Well, if you plug that into your calculator or if you do it in your head, 11 minus 14 is -3. So -3 equals -3. My answer is correct. Moving on to number 2. So first things first, I'm going to draw a line through my equal sign. And now I'm going to locate my variable. It is this w right here. So I have 23 plus w. Well, my question to you is, what kind of 23 is that? Is that a positive 23 or is it a negative 23? And how do I know? Well, I know that this is a positive 23 because there is no sign telling me that it's negative. There would have to be a negative sign if it were negative. So I want to get rid of that positive 23. So how do I get rid of positive 23? How do I undo a positive 23? Wouldn't I subtract 23? And if I subtract 23 on that side, I need to subtract 23 on this side too. Okay, so let's talk about the side with the w. 23 minus 23, that's 0. That cancels out, and I'm left with w by itself. That's what I wanted. Now on the left-hand side, 4 minus 23. Well, those are two integers with different signs, so 23 minus 4 is 19. And I know it needs to be negative because my bigger number is negative. So -19 equals w. Or like I mentioned before, you can write it as w equals -19. But we do need to check our solution. So we check our solution by plugging in -19 for w. So we have 4 equals 23 plus -19. Well, what is 23 plus -19? 23 plus -19, if you plug that into your calculator, is going to give you 4. So 4 equals 4. I know my answer is correct. Moving on to number 3. This one's a little bit different, but we're still going to follow the same rules. So I like to draw my line down my equal sign to remind me that whatever I do on one side, I must do on the other. And locate my variable. there's my A. So I'm trying to get A by itself. How is A connected to -2? Well, A is connected to -2 through division. So how do I undo dividing by -2? If you said multiplying by -2, you are indeed correct. So I'm going to multiply by -2 on both sides. So let's talk about the left-hand side, the side with the A. When I multiply by -2, my -2's are going to cancel out. And that's going to leave me with A alone by itself. Now on the right-hand side, 8 times -2 is -16. So A equals -16. So now let's check our solution. And we check it by just plugging in -16 for A. So we have -16 divided by -2 equals 8. Well, -16 divided by -2 is indeed 8. So 8 equals 8. Our answer is correct. Okay, moving on to number 4. So it's very similar to number 3. We're going to start by drawing our line down our equal sign and identifying our variable P. So how do I get that P by itself? Well, P is divided by 4. So how do I undo dividing by 4? If you said multiplying by 4, you are correct. And if I multiply by 4 on that right-hand side, on the left-hand side, I need to multiply by 4 as well. So let's talk about the side with the P. When I multiply by 4, my 4's cancel out, and I'm left with just P. P is by itself. Now on the right-hand side, 4 times 15, if I write that out and show my work, or if I put it in my calculator, however you do it, you're going to get 60. So 60 equals P. That is our solution, but we're not done because we always have to check our solutions. We're going to plug in 60 for P and simplify. So we have 15 equals 60 divided by 4. Well, 60 divided by 4 is indeed 15. So 15 equals 15. Our answer is correct. Okay, let's look at number 5. So first things first, draw your line down your equal sign. That helps you remember that whatever you do on one side, you must do on the other. And then locate your variable, K. So I have -7K equals -84. -7K equals -84. How is -7 connected to K? If you said they're connected through multiplication, you're correct. But how do you undo that? How do you undo multiplying? You divide. So we're going to divide by -7. And if I do that on one side, I better do it on the other side as well. So let's talk about the side with the K. -7 divided by -7. Well, that's just 1. That cancels out. So K is by itself. And on the other side, -84 divided by -7. Well, remember, I've got 2 negatives here. So when I divide, I'm going to have a positive number, and that positive number is going to be 12. So K equals 12. And you can use your calculator if those are bigger numbers to figure that out. So now I have to check my solution. So I'm going to plug in 12 for K. So we have -7 times 12 equals -84. -7 times 12, I'm going to write it like this. So I know my answer is going to be negative. 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 1 is 8. I do get -84. So -84 equals -84, and I know my answer is correct. Okay, moving on to number 6. Very similar to number 5. So first things first, we're going to draw our line down our equal sign, and I'm going to locate my variable. So I'm trying to get that variable by itself. So 5v. How are 5 and the variable v connected to each other? If you said they're connected through multiplication, you're correct. But how do I undo that? How do I undo multiplying? Well, I undo it by dividing. So I'm going to divide by 5. And if I do that on the left-hand side, I need to do the same thing on the right-hand side. So let's talk about the side with the v. 5 divided by 5, we know is 1, so that just cancels out, and that leaves me with just v. v is by itself, and that's what I want it to be. Now 65 divided by 5, you could come over here and write it out. I know 5 goes into 6 one time, that's 5. Subtract 1, bring down the 5. 5 goes into 15 3 times. 5 times 3 is indeed 15, so there is no remainder, so 13. So v equals 13. Now how do we check that? Well, we plug in 13 for v and simplify. So we have 5 times 13 equals 65. And we'll just double check over here. 13 times 5. 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times 1 is 5. Plus 1 is 6. So 65 equals 65. Our answer is correct. That's the end of this mini lesson.